All right. Welcome back to Servant Leadership Library, the only podcast where we blend business, brains, servant hearts, and just enough IT talk to make your firewall blush. I'm your host, Nicholas Paulukow, CEO of One-to-One, your friendly neighborhood managed IT and cyber IT firm, here to prove that leadership doesn't just come with a manual, just a mission. So today I'm fired up. We have literally, because we're talking about all things energy. We have a lot of energy in the room. We're talking about energy. My guest is Mike DeBerdine, President and CEO of Rhodes Energy, a 108-year-old powerhouse that's been keeping southeastern Pennsylvania warm, cool, fueled, long before Wi-Fi was even a thing. So we'll talk legacy, leadership, and what it's like to run an employee-owned company that's been thriving for over a century. Wow. And maybe we'll even find out how Mike keeps the spark alive, both in his people and in his fuel tanks. So grab your coffee, turn up the thermostat, because Mike will love that, and get ready to plug into the conversation that proves servant leadership isn't just about giving, it's about igniting others. So, Mike, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the invite, Nick. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, was looking forward to this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we're up early today.
Yeah, we are.
Well, we 108 years.
Yeah, sure.
Wow,
I look pretty good, huh?
You do look great. I mean, you're doing well. So we're gonna have to do another episode on physical fitness.
Yeah.
Right? So those that don't know Rhodes, like describe, where Rhodes has come from and how you're part of it.
Okay. It started 108 years ago in Quarryville by Mr. Rhodes, Jerome Rhodes himself, who I actually didn't know. He passed in the 70s. Wow. And left the family farm, started selling kerosene out of a rail car, and that was the advent of energy, petroleum energy. And coal was going out, and petroleum energy was coming in vogue. And then the business really evolved into a lot of diversification around motor fuels and tire recapping and even a restaurant. And which,
hey, there's oil there too.
Yeah, well, I was a controller at the time, and I was interviewed when we closed the restaurant in the 1990s, and the newspaper interviewed me, and I said, a bunch of oil guys should not be flipping burgers. So we decided it was best to get out of something that was not doing very well in a lot of different ways. But it was a passion of Mr. Rhodes. His wife loved to cook. They never had any children, so he bought her a restaurant so she could cook. Yeah, so, and then the company just evolved. Ultimately was run by 7 families after Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes passed. That was his succession plan. He passed that company on to those, gave it to those families. And ours was one of the 7, all nieces and nephews, and a sister and brother-in-law. And then after that, the stock got moved around. Everybody kept on gifting it to each other.
I see.
Through their estate. And then our family got the majority of voting shares in the late 70s or early 80s.
Wow.
And then after that, I started there in 89 as assistant controller, and then we ultimately bought the rest of the shareholders out. So now we're primarily owned by our family, but we are 24.5% ESOP.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. When did you decide to do that, and why was it important to you?
So, plug for Vistage, of which, Nick and I are both involved in. It's a peer CEO group, which I love that, especially in a small business. You get a lot of accountability that you may not get at work because you're sort of making the final call. Mm-hmm. When you have peer CEOs that are really smart people, and they push you and hold you accountable. We had a speaker. So we've been in the ESOP now 4 years. It'll be 4 years this end of this month, and so it was about 3 years in the investigation stages. So I'm going to say 8 years ago we had a speaker at Vistage, and so the model that Mr. Rhodes incorporated back in 1959 when he transferred the stock to these late 20-year-old, early 30-year-old. I mean, these were my parents. My mom was 28 and my dad was 30.
Wow,
and
really?
And so all these shareholders were in their, early mid 30s. I mean, so it was pretty cool. And he wanted to, he wanted to keep the legacy going, and that was his model. There was no ESOP back then, and he had made his money, and he had 5 farms at the time. It wasn't as if he was, he needed money to be paid out or anything like that. He just wanted his legacy to continue.
Okay.
And so, so that model of transferring the business onto the next generation, and trying to keep the assets closely held, and then rewarding the people that are making the stuff happen, was just sort of, that resonated with me when I learned a lot about ESOP, we'll say 8 or 9 years ago through Vistage. And so that's how it sort of came to be. And then, I've been there now for 36 years, and, we've tried to be good stewards of the gift that we've been given. Right. And so, we just continue to plow back our resources, into the business. And, I'm 61. I say, okay, what's my exit strategy? And because I can't take a delivery truck to the beach and go hang out, so I need. I'm thinking, because that's what we have, right? As you build a business, right, you reinvest, right? You're putting your profits in, and you're putting it back in the business to continue to grow. And we've done like 23 acquisitions, so there's always money that's got to go back in, and so it was that. And then finally, we're, as every business, even in your business, Nick, and because we've talked about it, I mean, to hire great talent is, you gotta work at it, right? And you got to have something that's different. And we think that employee ownership is a different carrot out there, that we're able to recruit with and retain with. So, it was multiple pronged. Okay. And then the final thing is, actually, I guess I could say all 3 of my children are involved in the business. 2 of them full time, 1 of them part time in Charlotte. She's doing her social media now, and I want to give them a crack at trying to grow the business themselves, and they're in it. They're fully invested in it with their efforts, and they're understanding that that they got to earn it, and I think that they do get that, and so. I just don't want to, move on, sell the business when they have that kind of interest. Right. It's nothing, and they've all done their own thing before they came to Rhodes, and so they asked to come back.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, and so it worked out. It has worked out at this point in time, right?
Yeah, what a blessing.
Yeah, for sure.
And when your father took over the business, was it always planned for you to come and then take that generation on, or?
Oh no, not at all. So my dad started there as a bookkeeper in 55.
Okay.
And then so, in 4 short years, he's one of the owners, with Mr. Rhodes transferred that stock over. But when I graduated from college at Franklin and Marshall, my aspiration always was to own a health club. All through high school, all through college, independent study, my senior year, second semester, got a B+ on a 100 and some page report, and it was 100% on paper going to be successful.
Really?
Because you're really smart when you're in college, and you know everything there, because you don't need, you don't need like firsthand experience, right? Because you're so book smart. And so a partner of mine and I started. He was also from Southern Lancaster County. Okay. We did market research. I mean, we really did have the perfect model. Like, we knew it was going to work. So that goes back to 87. Okay. When I graduated from college, and we were working on during 86. Like, we're already getting market surveys. We're working hard on pulling this together, saving money up, and talking to investors. We got some investors involved, and so there was no other health club south of Lancaster to the Maryland line then.
Wow,
the whole way to the Maryland line, and you got tens of thousands of people south of Lancaster.
Right.
And so, I could have opened up a garage door, thrown some dumbbells in there, and we'd have been millionaires. But we thought we had to go to the brand new mall, Town's Edge in Quarryville, which was, state of the art, opened in 1989. Nothing south of Lancaster past Kendick. It was the first only place south there. So we went in there, and a beautiful facility, 1,500 square feet. We had aerobics were big back then. We had a separate aerobics room. We had free weights. We had Nautilus equipment, if you ever remember that brand. That was top of the line back then. And probably within 3 months, we were maxed out, had no room to grow.
Really? You're serious?
Yeah. And, we grew ourselves right out of business.
Did you really?
For sure. It was a train wreck. And, my partner, give him all the credit in the world. I mean, we hung in there. And so at the same time, when we opened the mall, when the mall opened, there was another guy that was there, and he was vice president of another Anderson Bakery, and he had opened up a sporting goods store, so the trash was starting to collect on the sidewalks and the trash cans, and so we go to the mall owners and say, hey, what are you going to do about this? And he says, well, actually, we didn't really think about it. They didn't. I guess we'll have to take it. I said, how about we take it for you? We'll start a parking lot sweeping business.
Really?
So fast forward, my partner, he was Anderson Bakery guy and had a young family. He was out in 30 days. So ran the health club during the day, ran the sweeping business at night. And so I'd go home, get a little snack or dinner, maybe take an hour nap, because you can't do the malls until it's dark, right?
Okay.
Everybody goes home, malls are empty. So we leaf blowed the sidewalks, emptied the trash containers, and had a fast forward, had a parking lot sweeping machine. Ultimately had 23 malls we were doing between York,
Wow.
Lancaster, and Chester County. Did on a regular basis. So sometimes I would fall asleep at 2 a.m. up in Columbia in a parking lot with the truck engine running, just like I got to take a nap. And but the money was going to keep the health club alive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so it was tough, and my partner, who we both put in, he had a video rental business, right? You don't have those anymore.
Be kind and rewind.
Yeah, be kind. Be kind and rewind. Yeah, so he had that, right? And he so he was working those days, and he'd come over in the evenings and help out. I was more of the instructor and things like that, and I'd help. It was just a packed house. The windows would fog up in the mall space, within the first hour every night. You couldn't see out. We were going broke on buying 5-gallon jugs of water from the water replacement company. Yeah, we just a lot of mistakes. We nailed it. We knew there was a need, but we destroyed it with not understanding really the market in terms of the space, all that kind of good stuff. Just because you work out in a gym doesn't mean that you can run a gym.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So massive failure there. And then within 2 years, we met with the bank. I said, what do I need? I can't keep doing this. Just tell me what I need to get out. Don't burn a bridge. And that's what I did. I stroked the check. And then I kept sweeping business, and I'm not even sure where we go from here, Nick, but my dad asked me, shortly after that, we're just standing in his kitchen. He says, so what are you going to do now? I said, well, I'm making a lot of money on this sweeping business.
Yeah.
I have my days off, I'm sweeping at night, and that, it's pretty much my own schedule. And I think if I work at it, I can really do pretty successful at this. Well, we have an assistant controller position open at the office, but if you want to come in, you got to stay for 5 years because the controller's going to retire in 3. You're going to learn the job.
Wow.
I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. That was the job. That is the job interview right there. It was. And then we had a beer and just talked, and it's like,
really?
Okay, I show up at work, like a few days later, a week later, I opened my paycheck up, said, oh, okay, cool. I'm making $20,000. Good. Now I know.
Well, wait, did you keep the sweeping business then?
I did that.
Wow.
I kept on doing that because it was doing well. And then I eventually sold it. I think I kept it for about 2-3 years while I was at Rhodes.
Wow.
As the assistant controller and the controller. And I started to have a guy that worked for me a little bit, but it was just too much. Like Deb says, my wife says, we had it was our down payment on our house and helped pay for our wedding. I mean, so it was,
yeah,
it was good. It was great. So,
man, all the years of knowing you, and I didn't know that little nugget.
You didn't know that?
No.
And that's how I got hired by Rhodes.
I didn't know the
standing in the kitchen.
A lot of stuff happens in kitchens for you and your family. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Oh, there's a lot going on there.
No, well, that's good. That means you're all close family.
We are.
Surrounded around the table, breaking bread.
Yeah. No, it was great. I was really glad I did it, and like the healthcare thing. I mean, not the healthcare, but the gym. That was just an aspiration. Always wanted to do, and I loved it. Grew up as a gym rat, playing sports, and like, again, it was too successul.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well, that explains then that you then continue to do like refereeing and everything, right?
for sure. When
Wow.
when I graduated from F&M, I had played football there, and then I missed, and then I ended up coaching at Solanco then
Wow.
for 3 seasons. The third season was when I started as assistant controller at Rhodes. Well, you just can't, you're working at a business, you're the new guy in the block, you're working in Lancaster City. You can't leave at 2:30 every day.
Right.
It really looks bad. You might be first in, but nobody sees you're in at 6 a.m. Yeah, they're not digging that, and it's fair. I mean, I wasn't, and so my contract ended. I started there, it was July 24th, 1989, and at the end of the football season, I was done then coaching. And then a friend of mine reached out and said, "Hey, you want to stay around sports? And why don't you consider officiating?"
Wow.
So that's how I got into football officiating.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like your skill and your ability to coach also lends to business in a way. It sounds like, it sounds like there's been a lot of servant leaders in your generation of the business. Like, what have you learned from them, right? I mean, now that it's employee owned
Right.
and like, what does servant leadership mean to you, or what have you experienced?
So one thing, so like I said, I had the good fortune to know Mr. Rhodes. I think we were the closest thing he had to grandchildren.
Oh, okay.
We would always go over Christmas morning with I missed the part where I explained about my grandfather. We got involved early on. Well, my dad did in 55. Mr. Rhodes, my grandfather was an orphan, and Mr. Rhodes and he met in we think around the 1920s or so, and the business started in 1917. And he came on as his gopher, like go for this, go for that.
Okay.
No real formal education. My mom estimates my grandfather had a 3rd grade education.
Okay.
Because when you're an orphan, back in the day, you go to school until, actually, you work in the fields. Let me back up. You work in the fields until the crop season's over. Then when the ground's frozen, you're going back to, back into school.
Cool, yeah.
And then as soon as the ground thaws out, you're back in the fields working,
Right.
or whatever you did, So my grandfather and he met each other in Chester County somewhere. And then he just came on, and he was Mr. Rhodes' helper. Mr. Rhodes treated him like a son, but didn't give him the money. He gave him but he gave him the opportunity, right?
Okay.
So he was a short order cook and a waiter.
Wow.
He pumped full service gas at the gas station, did tire recapping and all that kind of good stuff. But so it was my grandfather. If you go through Lancaster Online and look at the archives, and you look up our name, you'll see that he was a fire engine chaser. Yeah, and he got cited for that in Lancaster City. It was the funniest darn thing. Like, you're reading these articles and like, what are you doing, Grandpa?
That was before you did the loop.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure he didn't own the car, but but he was, they gave these kids, and I think the citation was $25. I mean,
Was
that's
it
a
really?
lot of
Yeah.
money in the 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it probably on a payment plan for that, but yeah. So your question is about servant leadership. Mr. Rhodes, in everything I knew of him personally and everything, he really took care of family. Like he just, there's some families that the mother was widowed, had multiple boys, young children, and they're all young men, and they all you just tell me when the next one needs a job. We're going to be ready for them. We're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of them. So he took care of the whole family.
Wow.
And made sure that they had opportunity to thrive and be a success. And the way he treated customers, and I know this firsthand also. People couldn't pay, and he said, "Hey, we've got it. You got it. You just work on paying that down." I mean, he was an intimate community business, right? You could do that, and he could do that, and he just really took care of a lot of families. And with him and Mrs. Rhodes having no children, his company was his family.
Okay.
there was a time when they bought that restaurant in the 1930s that when people were growing up and members, the employees would come and eat for free.
Would they really?
Yeah, just come on in and have dinner, and
Aw.
yeah, but it was pretty cool. But and I think though that Mr. Rhodes and Mrs. Hostetter, who was his sister-in-law, who took over after he and Mrs. Rhodes passed. She became president, and she lived in Quarryville also.
Yeah.
Again, no children. It's just different. The Mennonite families, right? It's just different. I'm not going to guess what the reasons were. Maybe just by choice, but it is. It was just a unique situation, right? All these families, and then when they passed, Mr. and Mrs. Hoster passed, they transferred their stock to my parents. Unbeknownst to my parents at the time,
Really?
that's going to happen, right? It was just a reading of the will,
Wow, really?
Yeah. So, but everybody, they sort of understood the mission of what Mr. Rhodes wanted there. And, we had tough times in the 90s. And I would say that when it comes to, when we talk about integrity and ethics and things like that in the company and leadership, and, my father, you never knew him, but he was a quiet guy, but he led by his actions all the time. He wasn't a rah-rah person.
I remember his sofa at the office.
He
I've
did.
met him a few
Yeah,
times.
we had Parkinson's,
Yeah.
so we had that in there for him just to take.
I loved it.
Yeah, take a rest. My mom said, "We're going to put a sofa in your dad's office." We're going to put a sofa in my dad's office. So we moved there. We moved to that office in 2001, and then he passed a couple years later from that. But yeah, but probably the thing that will always stick in my mind about doing the right thing and about being a leader and showing the example of what really he was really played in the black and the white. I can't think of a time when he ever worked in the gray. And so it just made life easier for all of us, right? It was painful at times, right? Black and white is painful, or can be joyous.
Yeah.
But so during the 90s, well, actually in 1988, right before I got there, I started in 89, the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the federal government, said underground tanks had to be upgraded or removed, okay? Which is a good policy. It needed to happen, right? Nobody's arguing that. Well, Mr. Rhodes built the business during the 30s, 40s, and 50s and whatever of putting mom and pop gas stations. This is before Turkey Hill, Sheetz, and Wawa were around, and they were all just little country stores, and they had buried tanks there. Well, in the propane model, the propane companies like to own the tanks in the field, okay? Well, he owned all those tanks, dozens of them.
Wow.
And so we either had to sell them to the existing owner, because then you controlled the ownership, like supply. You locked in supply. So we had all these dozens and dozens of tanks. So when I get there in 1989, Pennsylvania regs are on the table. What we have to do to follow the EPA regs. So we're out. I'm assistant controller. I really don't even know what's going on at this point in time, but they're out selling as many tanks as they can for $1 to our customers. Of course, that gives them the opportunity to buy from anybody they want, right? And so, but we were left with dozens and dozens of tanks, including our own properties. And so we had an auto parts business that ultimately ended up being sold eventually to Snavely and Dodge.
Really?
Yeah, who then they sold to Fisher Auto Parts. So you see Fisher Auto Parts locally, that's sort of an extension of our old auto parts business. We had a tire recapping business, which still exists today with relatives of Mr. Rhodes, and they bought that from, but they were second generation to buy it from the people that bought it from us in 91. We had a couple, we had a convenience store down in Intercourse with gas. We had a couple full service gas stations where you pulled in one side only, right? Like on Prince Street where our office used to be, where the police station is today.
Yeah.
So they would pull in there. It's a full service there, a couple of those. We had 6 tractor trailers, transport business. We sold everything off, except the small truck delivery for home heating oil, and some motor fuel delivery to farms. And we had a service department with, say, maybe 6 service technicians. We went from 120 to 130 employees to 25.
Wow.
We knew our environmental obligation was going to be huge.
Wow.
So we were all doing everything we could to raise capital. And, we weren't making money. So, who wants to lend you money? And, we were dealing with the bank, Fulton Bank at the time. And it was very challenging. In other words, every year for 10 years. So I leave my thriving health club business where you're losing money. I have a sweeping business at night, and now I'm assistant controller, and I see the financials, and for 10 years, you lose money.
Maybe that's why Dad didn't tell you what the pay was.
Yeah.
It's variable.
Unbelievable. So it was just a mess during that time period. But the fact of the matter is, to get to the point where where I just really got it with my dad, and it was just the box. The box exists today. It's at our office down here in Hazel Street in the warehouse. But I know exactly where it is, and in there were all these equipment leases, all these tank leases, and invariably we would get a call, let's say a Mrs. Herr or Jim Herr. I'm just making up names, Southern Lancaster County names, right? People would call in and they say, "Hey, I'm trying to sell my grandfather's farm. I understand there's a tank here. I understand it's you guys own it. Is that accurate? We don't have any paperwork."
Oh.
So my dad and I would go to the file. There's whatever, Amos Herr or whatever it is, there's the folder. And he said, "Yep, we own it." So they didn't know that. We were the only two people in the whole company that knew it. We're the only two people behind anybody that knew it. He said, "Well, let's go down and get it cleaned up." $30,000 later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh, no.
Like you had to dig the tank out?
Dig the tank, pay for the cleanup of the dirt, because invariably it was just, when they installed those tanks, decades and decades ago, it was just bare steel and dirt.
Right.
If they would just use the simple stuff today, where we wrap a tank in sand or crushed stone or whatever it is, instead of just dirt on dirt, because in the ground there's electronic fields that go through. If you just have a rock sitting up against a spot on a tank, it'll burn a hole right through it.
Really?
Yeah. So we had these all over the place, including our own properties, where we're pulling tanks out everywhere. And so all during the 90s, it was just an environmental cleanup, and all of our profits continued to pay for our sins of the past, But we could have ignored those because nobody had any proof. But that wasn't the right way to do things.
Right.
And that was very clear for me. That was a black and white decision. We own the tank. We're now going to go clean up this property. And like I said, we had dozens of these from all through Chester and Lancaster County, and all in the country. I can probably drive you around Penn Manor, Nick, and yep, we had a tank there. We had a tank there. Yep. I mean, yeah, it was a mess. But that was the biggest firsthand that I think probably also just wore my dad down. I would say that
that'd be hard for him.
Oh, just this legacy business. We're in business like 75 some years at that point in time, and we're just hanging on, doing the best we can just to make it to the next day. And we did, and I think we did it the right way. And
it just proves if you do the right thing.
Well, it might not. It could.
Opportunity comes back.
Yeah, we do. We do believe though that opportunity comes back, and we do believe there's an awful lot of luck in business too.
Yeah.
If you think that you're winning because you're smart, then you're not. That's not true.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge that. Fortitude does come your way sometimes, and you have to acknowledge that. But as we say, luck is when preparation and opportunity meet, right? And so, Mr. Rhodes built a heck of a business, and with the employees that were there, and he acknowledged that with these 7 families, right?
Right.
And he wanted that business to continue. But when so we had a lot of assets. Man, we had assets. We had heck of a fleet. We sold off all the transport business. We got rid of all those. We just cut and grabbed equipment anywhere we could. Cash anywhere we could, and we were just fortunate that we had so many assets to get rid of, sell off. We sold land. We sold anything that we didn't need to keep the business going.
What a heck of an education when you show up.
For sure.
Oh, wow.
It's terrible.
What a way to learn the business.
How to balance a negative checkbook. Yeah.
You have a master's degree in everything.
Yeah. So my track record of success was really not sure why we're here today, Nick.
I'm right. What I think is so amazing and passionate that comes out of your voice is what you've been able to do with every generation has instilled the vision of Mr. Rhodes and how you all
Sure.
speak about it, but how you all live it.
Yeah,
Like just
sure.
how you work in the community and how you take care of your people is fascinating.
Mhm.
And it's amazing to see because there's many generational businesses that we even see in our wonderful community that don't make it past the
Yeah.
second generation
Yeah,
or
we're
the
up to
third.
4 now.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Actually, 5 is working in the business. So.
Congratulations.
No, we're very fortunate, and so I've said this phrase a million times, but it's the truth, and I think that's the sort of the mantra that I think that why we've been able to survive some bad times and some really really bad times is there was a gentleman within the industry, it was a big pipeline distribution company here in Central PA, and he wrote a book. And in that book, he says, your profits are not meant to be spent. They're there to pay for your mistakes later. And so I think that we have tried to be good stewards with our opportunities and continue to pump the money, our profits back in the business in a responsible way, and to try to live within our means and be ready for the next opportunity because as they say, I've heard this more recently, but this too will pass, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the good stuff will pass.
My mom would
and
always tell me
and
that.
the bad stuff will pass,
Yeah.
right? It's not you're not going to always just be steady Freddy
That's
forever,
right.
right? But you will have, if you're riding high, we just had strategic planning, and right now we feel like we're in a pretty good spot right now. Okay, we have a lot of energy. No pun intended. But we have a lot of energy behind our team. I think the team that we have in place is exciting.
Yeah.
And they're getting engaged. They're starting to realize what the ESOP is about. They've gotten their third stock certificate.
Wow, it's amazing.
And it was very meaningful. It's becoming meaningful and it's real.
Wow.
And so the first stock certificate we had, like I said, we started at the end of October of 2020 something. And so they get a stock certificate for $200 and they're not even vested. And so, wow, all the hoopla. Go over that.
I can pay for my gas.
Yeah. One day in retirement, I got out to dinner with that $200. But now it's multiples thousands, and it's nice to see.
Awesome.
And it's nice to see that that they are that they're getting. My goal is that our ESOP retirement account, their individual retirement accounts, will surpass anything that they've ever put in their 401k.
Wow.
And I think that we'll get there. And I don't think it would be in pretty short order in the next whatever so many years.
Wow.
But I feel good about that. That's another opportunity for them to hopefully have a solid retirement. And then it sort of emulates what Mr. Rhodes set up for those 7 families, give them an opportunity. What I will tell you though, Nick, you talk about Mr. Rhodes, and you reminded me of something, an experience I had. I was, because of my dad, eventually, failing in health, I was dealing with the shareholders that were all active at that point in time, and they're all in their 80s, right? They're all in their 80s, and knock on the door of 90, and we all knew each other. We all, because we'd been around the business. They didn't necessarily work in the business at that, up through retirement age, but they were relatives or their spouse who might be deceased worked in the business, or something like that. But these shareholders would come to me and they say, "Hey, Mike, we want to get out." I said, "Okay, well, here's the buy-sell agreement. First of all, it's based off of X, and you're getting a discount. Oh, and by the way, we have this environmental thing going on." And they say, "Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it." That's exactly how I've never, ever, and not one of those 7 families ever, and they knew, that there was a gift.
Right.
Mr. Rhodes gave them a gift, when they were in their 30s, and so when you think about, getting stock after, let's see, it was 59, was it 50 years later, and you're getting like really, not a lot of money.
Yeah.
and at all. And they were grateful. And they said, "We're going to pay you out over 10 years." I said, "Okay, thank you. That's fine." Oh, by the way, Yes, the normal interest rate today is like 9%. Can we pay you 4%? Yeah, that'd be great, Mike. No problem. So, we were just, and they got it.
A lot of kindness.
They got it. They got the kindness that Mr. Rhodes gave to them. They
passed that on to.
They passed, and so they were showing also like gratitude. Being grateful for what they got.
Wow.
It was a gift, and there's no other. You hear stories, especially when we talk to other people that are in the financial planning world. You tell them that story. Said, "Oh my gosh, I've run into so many families that would have a struggle with that." Like they would say, "Oh no, the business is this. We want more money. We want more money."
Really?
And they just said, but we're very fortunate, I think, because Mr. Rhodes sort of set the model.
Yeah, what a value.
And everybody has been able to transfer those stories forward and acknowledge the fact that we've been given a gift and we should be good stewards of that gift. So,
now, was it difficult to work with your father?
My father gave me all sorts of rope to hang myself.
So he gave you the opportunity to learn.
He gave me the opportunity to learn. Like, how much can you lose, right? Or lose the money. Yeah. Go ahead, do anything.
Don't lose more, Mike.
Do anything, Mike, to make money. Your track record's so good.
So, he saw how successful you were with items that you did. I'm sure he was proud of you.
Yeah, he was very proud of me for sure. He was, he was high school educated. He learned everything he learned was at Rhodes as a bookkeeper, and then he moved on up through there. He gave me a lot of rope, and it was small. It was an intimate company. Everybody knew everybody well, because we were so small during the 90s, and he, I'd go talk to him. Hey, do you mind if can we try this? Sure. Let's give it a shot. And, but that's sort of always been our style at Rhodes. We're willing to give something, you're not going to, lose the ship over it. It's a calculated risk. You understand that it could potentially be painful for some time if things don't work out, but we always had opportunity. We always tried to pursue opportunities, still to this day.
Wow.
And I feel like I've given my son Nate, who's been there, Brooke's been there, not quite a year yet, but I've given him those opportunities too. And I think he would like to move a lot faster, than the opportunities. But man, the money that kid can spend.
It's a different time now.
Holy smokes, man! But it's good but it's all infrastructure. It's transports. It's we have a railroad.
Do you ask
terminal.
him to like put his house on the line for it too, or...
I haven't got there yet.
I haven't got there.
And I'm not. Yeah. I'm still there with that one.
You're still there with that one.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So anyway,
how difficult has it? I mean, this passion of kind of bringing down the mission of what you've all been given. How do you do that for your kids now? Like how do they understand what it is to carry that same legacy on?
So I mentioned that I want to give them the opportunity, right? And so the way the opportunity would work was if they have to have stock, right? Okay. They have to have stock. So we have gone through some coaching. We need more coaching as a family, just because I think it's just something. It's not like we're failing, but I think I think we still just need accountability, right? Yeah. It's healthy, right? Yeah, you don't go to practice one day in the sports team and think you got it all figured out, right? So we still need coaching, but they get it that there's two parts of business. We've talked about this in Vistage too, Nick. That there's the job, and you'll be paid commensurate for the work.
Right.
You're not going to be paid some sort of an egregious amount because your last name's DeBerdine, right? You're, if you are doing this role, you'll be paid for that job.
Yeah.
And so they get all that. And then we have ownership. And so I have started gifting some stock to them, but we have family meetings too.
Okay.
And so they understand about what the plan is. It's should be very clear to them. Even Emma, who's working 10 to 20 hours remote for us down in Charlotte, understands what the plan is. Now she's not full time, so she's not able to receive stock at this point in time, because that's the way our stock agreements are.
Okay.
It's written that way. Of course, we could change those, but I'm just not willing to do that.
Right.
You know, so although it's just our family as shareholders between my mom and two of the kids and myself, we're pretty strict on that. And when we have our family meetings, we're very transparent. We share everything with the kids. Deb and I share our aspirations in retirement. We share what our plan is in terms of estate planning. And then we also remind them that what may be fair is not equal.
Right.
Okay. So
I love that one.
Yeah, I do, and I love to say it too, because I think it's so important for the kids, because each child in our family has had a different path where they've gone. Okay, and somewhere along the path, like the girls we invested a lot of money in them in their sports early on when they weren't going to college, and Nate not so much on the sports side, but we were stronger on the college side. So so we're not keeping score.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you all got a college education, right? So let's just focus on that.
Yeah.
And and actually Emma now has her master's, which I'm so proud of. First DeBerdine child.
Yeah. It seems so healthy though. There's probably not. I don't hear many business owners and families having such an open conversation. What a blessing!
Well,
to be
actually,
able to do that too.
and Brooke insists on minutes too.
Wow, I love it.
So when we meet each year, she said, "Let me get the minutes out.
Let me read back to you.
Read back what you said." No, but that's good though. I think that's really healthy.
Yeah.
It's accountability to what we said and what we're going to do, and say, "Hey, did we say we're going to do this?" Okay. Yep. Well, maybe we're not. Maybe we are. So anyway, it is good, and I look forward to those, and I think the kids do too. In terms of we're just sharing what's going on with mom and dad, and this is how it's going to be.
Awesome. What would you say? I mean, we all have had people in our lives and mentors and whatnot. What's one thing that you think really impacted you, or a mentor has impacted you, that has kind of helped you in your CEO role?
In the CEO role, told you the story about my dad, about how he just, his integrity was, and Mr. Rhodes too, but I didn't quite understand integrity, like at that level when I'm 10, 12 years old, right? Yeah. You don't quite get all that, but for my dad, absolutely 100% got it, was amazed at it, and just like, wow, this is pretty hard. This is pretty painful right now.
Yeah.
But it's all good, but I don't know that I have a single mentor. I do think, and I do want to go back to Vistage. I think that team of mentors has been critical for me. I think that if I would not have joined that organization, that I would be a different person. Really? And just because of the team that's been there, that the ones that are there today, and the four guys that have been there since 2008 when I joined.
Wow.
They're just really good, caring people, and they make it uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what a mentor's about, right? You don't want to just rah-rah you all the time. They want to make you think and make you be uncomfortable, and so I still feel that I'm learning so much at Vistage, and I hope that I can give back to that level, but I know it's not happening. I just know that the team around me is just continually, they're just really smart people, and it's a good group. It's really a good group, yeah.
And if for listeners that are trying to become leaders or define what that is, what advice would you give them as they're kind of going through their journey of learning and developing?
The word you just said, be a habitual learner. Never stop learning. Don't ever think you're too smart to continue to learn. I literally read, if I would start to clock my time again, because I did that a lot. What am I spending my time on? I spend a lot of time reading during the day. A lot of time reading. Good, bad, or indifferent, I just do, because I feel like I need to make sure that I'm aware of the industry mainly industry I read about. Um, and but I would say don't ever stop learning. I go to seminars, I'll do webinars. I mean, I pop on and just constantly trying, and then I like to share that information with our team on a continual basis. Whether they do, I'll do videos of send out to the entire team, just to talk about the state of the company or make sure they understand what's going on around the industry or things like that. And I think that continual learning is imperative, and then also you gotta be willing to take the feedback, right?
That's hard sometimes.
It's real hard sometimes, especially when you know you're right. Actually, yeah. So no, it's hard. It's very hard, and you just have to take it. And I think this is actually, I think maybe because I talk too much, that I've heard this phrase said more often, that you're going to learn a lot more when you're listening than when you're talking. So, so I think we all should be doing a lot more listening than we are talking, and I think that continual receiving guidance and positive and negative feedback, constructive feedback, we really are trying hard at our company I'm meeting now in small groups around the entire company. We have 165 employees now across 11 counties. So it's hard to get to do a one-on-one. So I'm doing small groups, maybe 3 to 5 people. And they've been weekly. However, with my travel, I've just been away from the office a lot here in the last 2-3 weeks. So, but I'm back on track here. But I have really enjoyed those. But in those meetings, I make it clear that we want your opinion, we want your feedback, but we want to come back. We want a solution. We don't want to complain without okay, this is how we can make it better.
Right.
If you're not happy with something, that's cool. That's great. That means there must be something better out there, right? So let's learn from it. And so we've really, really harped on providing constructive feedback to each other. All of us.
And you're face to face with that, which is amazing.
We are. No, we're sitting in a small group just like this room here. Drivers, techs, credit, CSRs, whoever. Nobody in management, though, just the frontline team. And it'll probably take me a year to get through the whole company, and then we'll circle it up again. And we're getting feedback that they really are enjoying those times, and that gets scribed. And there's, some technology, it's getting recorded and written out and all these things that we couldn't do before.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What a journey. What an amazing family and all the work that you've done.
I'm very blessed. Yeah.
And we appreciate all the work that you do in the community too.
Outside
of running the business, we didn't get into much of that today, but it's all the giving back that you do in the community too. So we appreciate you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And all those that are listening, Mike was a helper for me as I started in my journey in business too. So I credit him for where our building is today and other things. So an opportunity that they get both buildings. That's right.
Sorry.
What? Mike's been a great guy. So, Mike, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
All those that are listening today that wanted to learn more about maybe your journey and ESOP or other things, and your philosophy kind of as a leader, where do you think that they could gather more information on?
So first of all, we are not shy, nor do we think it to be a burden for people to reach out individually. We love sharing our story, and when people want to know more about ESOP or our company, we are big on sharing best practices with other type companies like ours. Of course, you got to be careful in your market, but we share ideas with people across the state, across the Mid-Atlantic region, and and stuff like that. But you can go to our website for sure, rhoadsenergy.com. But and then but we have reels of our history out there, and then about the ESOP. And honestly, the ESOP piece of it, I just love talking about because I think I learned a lot. I thought that we brought a great team together, whether it be the trustee or the attorneys or just the bank. I think it all worked out really nicely, and I think it's working now. And so, of course, we're on LinkedIn, and there's stories there too. But honestly, they can find me there. Our HR director is big on sharing the story, and we're all about it. You don't have to just go read. We're happy to sit and talk.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because we talk too much.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you. Well, I think Mike has just proved that energy isn't just about keeping the lights on. It's about lighting people up. So I love that. From 108 years of legacy to empowering your team through ownership. Amazing. You've shown us that servant leadership isn't just a buzzword. It's a fuel source. You see what we did there? One that never runs out when it's built on purpose and people. So thanks for sharing your time and your wattage with us today. To everyone listening, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Servant Leadership Library. I'm your host, Nicholas Paulukow, CEO 1-to-1, reminding you that leadership isn't just about being in charge. It's about being charged up to serve. So until next time, stay curious, stay humble, and keep leading like you mean it.